Right. Hello everyone, I'm Heather. I'm back with what I hope will be a quick video. I am on my lunch break, but as I now work from home, doesn't really mean anything because I just spend all day eating and drinking anyway. So for lunch, currently I'm having the leftovers of my daughter's breakfast and the dregs of my mid-morning coffee. To be fair, we did make this bread, so I feel like in the midst of all this lockdown business, everyone's like returning to the 1950s, you know? We bake bread. We have chickens to give us eggs now because we can find eggs anywhere. My husband's gonna have to cut his own hair, you know? Like, I volunteered to do it, but he was like, no, that's definitely not happening. Like, to be fair, I can see his point. But today, I'm going to go on one of my very rare shopping trips to the big grocery store. I live in the city, Cardiff, so most of my shopping happens at tiny, useless, little grocery stores on the corner that never really have anything I want, even when it's not a national emergency. Do you know what I mean? For the rare occasional treat, we can go to the big grocery store in the car and get actual things that we want in large quantities and put them in the car. And it's going to be really fun today because I haven't seen anyone else for about a week and I'm going to be able to stand next to actual live human beings. I mean, 6 feet away obviously with my trolley, but you know, it's going to be amazing. So I'm getting myself ready. I'm fully embracing this new 1950s life that I have. I'm doing my hair in curlers that I found in my house while I was cleaning because I was bored. And I'm like, look at this, look at the situation. Look at how old this is. Remington. I think that my mother gave me this, and I think I remember it being in the house when I was an actual kid. Like, this is an actual relic from the 90s, I think, if not the 80s, to be fair. It's even got the American plug, which obviously is no use to me in the UK until I use the adapter. And whenever I use an adapter with appliances, I think, is this the day I catch my house on fire? Okay, so if you haven't seen my lunch break book chats before, I'm generally just talk about the books I've been reading, the ones I finished, the ones I'm reading now, the ones I'm thinking about reading in the future. And because I didn't do one last week, because I was having a bit of an emotional breakdown, I feel like you relate, I thought I'll skip a week for my mental health, whatever, who cares, there's no rules, and do a double one in the week coming up. So, boom, 2 weeks of reading for this one, but because it was sort of like a heavy emotional breakdown couple of weeks, I haven't actually read that much, so it should be short. So basically last couple of weeks I was wrapping up my readathon, so I was doing middle grade March and Dowithon, which is the Wales related readathon. So for those ones I finished The Explorer by Catherine Rundell, and I actually really liked this one. I was worried that in my current emotional state and with the state of the world, that something to do with kids plane crashing on a deserted island and then having to eat each other was going to be a big problem for me emotionally. But actually it was really lovely and really cute, and they didn't eat each other. They did crash on the island and they didn't have any adults, but they sort of start to see a bunch of signs that other people have lived there, and they're like, ooh, is this person still around? Are these people gone? You know, what were they like? How did we get off the island? Obviously. It's somewhere in the Amazon, so these kids, they like, one of them I think is English and he goes to school in South America. Some of them are actually from South America or whatever. But anyway, they crash on their way home to wherever they're going, and they learn a lot about each other's like home situations. Some of them aren't very good. They get really friendly with each other. They sort of overcome loads of things, and they find sort of this mystery of someone living on the island already. And I won't tell you the end, but it was a really good ending. It was like quite like heartfelt, and I feel like they all learned a lot of something, and it's a good like lesson for me going forward in the world as well. But I don't want to tell you what it is because it will totally give it away. But it was really cute illustrations and stuff. Like in it, the characters are really cute. There's like a little brother who's about 5 years old or so, which is the age of my kid, so I can completely understand. I really like that one. It was just really cute. The next one that I read for middle grade March wasn't actually a book, it was an audiobook, and I got it because my library audiobook app started sort of rapid firing books at me again, annoyingly. And that one was Tilly and the Lost Fairy Tales by Anna James. So I read the first one of this series, which is Tilly and the Book Wanderers, I think over Christmas or so. Really cute, really liked it. I was worried that the second one wouldn't be as good because loads of what happens in the first one that's good is that you find out like the secret of her family, and the secret is that Tilly's whole family... Oh crap, I'm losing control. Ugh, I don't know how to do these curlers. And I don't know anything about being a 50s housewife. I need a bit of guidance. But anyway, Tilly and her whole family can do book wandering, which is they can go inside books, and there's like all these rules for safety and like, you know, fair use and everything. Like, you can't fall in love with people in books, you know, beware of the end pages because you can get stuck, you know, beware of plot holes and blah, 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 because it's an actual gaping black hole, you know, that you can fall in. Things like this. And in the first one, they sort of explain all that, and you find out about it sort of over, you know, the whole book. So I thought, well, they've sort of blown the lid off that, you know, mystery solved. What can the second one be like? But the second one was really good. I was wrong. It's about sort of like teaching them about fairy tales, which are different from regular books because they're not sort of from an author's mind onto a page. They're sort of like, you know, centuries and centuries and centuries of telling via sort of mouth. The stories sort of come about completely differently and sort of have a completely different life living amongst the people before they're even put down on paper, and sometimes they're put down differently, different versions of things, you know, based on what country you're in or sort of like who's writing it down, and can cause problems when you book wander in a fairy tale. Also, the villain from the first one was never captured. He's on the lam, if you will. So this one was really cute. I really liked it. The audiobooks are really good as well. The narrator's really good. Writing's really good, character really good. I just love this one. It was really cute. Okay, I'm sort of wrapping up my Dowie-thon situation as well. I finally finished Llyfr Nebo by Manon Steffan Ross. So this is in the Welsh language, which is why it took me a whole damn month just to read like this tiny book, but I did it. Boom! Conquered that mountain. You're allowed to be excited for me. It's awesome. But basically, the book was ridiculously depressing, and in this time of fragile mental health, it almost broke me. But it was really good. It won loads of prizes. It was the Wales Book of the Year and everything, so people love it. Loads of people have read it, and it's got loads of praise. And I can understand, like, I think my Welsh language abilities aren't so good that I can recognize when the writing of a book is really good. Do you know what I mean? Like the word choice and sort of expression and things like that, I don't fully grasp just yet. But people have said it's really beautiful. Lost on me, sorry. But the plot of it is that there's this mother and her two kids, and they're living in this house in a neighborhood with no one else there because there was like a huge war and like a nuclear explosion. Everyone in the neighborhood died. The only reason that they didn't die is because she's like a really forward planner and like completely understood what was happening sort of straight away. And she got all the stuff that she needed. She sort of like loaded up on really important things, and like when she saw this like nuclear cloud coming at them, she like got all this water and put it by the bed and sort of like touched up with her son, you know, and like basically they always had water and they were really ill and blah, blah, blah. But that's basically what kept them alive when everyone else died. They didn't have what they needed to deal with like the sickness coming from the nuclear waste or whatever. It's really grim. Like a lot of it talks about like the beauty of life after all of this other stuff goes away, you know, after cars go away and after social media goes away and after having to be at work right on time goes away, like how much more beautiful the world is and how much, you know, more joy you can get out of life when the stakes are so much higher. But also, damn, it is so grim. And I just loved it and also just hated it. So there's that. So after completely throwing all of my March stuff up into the air and messing up all of my readathons and everything by not keeping on track, finished what I could do and then just went off grid, you know, just completely mood reading in order to survive. And from that, I first read Normal People by Sally Rooney. because I heard that it was a beautiful love story, and I just thought, ooh girl, I need that in my life right now. So it turns out that it's not actually a beautiful love story. I can see how some people would think that, but I feel a bit cheated, to be totally honest. When I finished it, I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads, first of all, because I was like, the ending was fantastic, and I really liked it, you know, the characters were really good, and I just like finished it really fast. I was like, yes. But as I'm sort of like thinking about it now, sort of going back in my mind, quite a lot of it was quite boring, and also quite traumatic. And then it wasn't really the love story I was looking for. There was a lot of like meaningless sex. You know, I don't know. It's not what I was looking for, to be honest. And it's just basically really normal people falling in love over the course of a really long time. It's in Ireland. It's a girl and guy in school. First of all, they're in like their last years of just school before they go to university. The girl isn't very well liked in the school. She's made fun of a lot. Her like social standing is really low. And she knows the guy. He's like a family friend. His mother works for her mother as a cleaner. So they know each other really well. They see each other a lot. They're really friendly, but in school, their social circles don't come together. You know, he's like really well liked and popular, and she's just the scum basically of the school. And they start to get to know each other really well. They start to like have sex and stuff all the time, but pretty much it's not a relationship, and no one in school knows that they're doing it. And it turns out that he's just basically sort of using her, but he seems to be like quite a nice guy. I think basically he doesn't realize that that's what he's doing. You know, he thinks, oh, we can just have some sex and then I can go to school and it'll be fine. I don't have to do anything else, blah, blah. I think also she doesn't really fully understand that's what's happening either, but then does in the end, and then is really hurt. But anyway, it's sort of over the course of time, like, oh, she gets another boyfriend, he gets another girlfriend, blah, blah, blah. One of these stories where they're never really together, even though they're meant for each other until, you know, the very end. But, you know, I'm so torn. Like, originally I was like, the ending is really good, the character's really good, it was really good. And now thinking back, I'm like, was it just a bit boring and a bit of a disappointment? I don't really know. It's for you to judge, I guess. Has anyone read this? Does anyone like love this one, hate this one? Okay, let me know in the comments because I'd be interested to know. Anyway, next one is actually amazing. It was a fantastic book, and it's been on my shelf for ages, absolutely ages. Like, I sort of originally thought that it was going to be really, like, hard-hitting and, like, really intense and, like, heartbreaking. So I didn't want that in my life. But I heard from a couple other people that actually it's hilarious. Like, okay, actually, that is what I need in my life currently. So I read This Is Going to Hurt by Adam Kay, which I previously heard was about like how intense the NHS works its junior doctors to death and then doesn't really pay them properly for it. Like, it's just sort of how they treat them is going to be the end of the NHS because no one's going to want to work there anymore. And I was like, well, that's grim and I don't want to read about that. And it is sort of about that, to be totally honest. But it's just this guy who's no longer a doctor. He threw in the towel ages ago. But just basically hilarious things that happened to him while he was a doctor. Like he's an OBGYN, or like a sort of like gynecologist or whatever. Like, he basically deals with vaginas and stuff. And he says like he pulls the babies out of the vaginas, but also he pulls out loads of other things from the vaginas over the course of his career. And you think, you know, all of the things he must have seen come out of a vagina. Like, I can't even cope thinking about it, but his stories about it were hilarious. I mean, it's like a bit heartbreaking, I guess, where he does miss a lot of things. He misses loads of weddings and loads of vacations last minute, and he ends up doing loads of extra work that he's not paid for and sort of stuff like this. And it sort of, I guess, does do what it's supposed to do, in that there was this sort of thing a couple of years ago, not anymore. Currently, we are loving NHS and doctors at the minute. But a couple of years ago, they were trying to demonize these doctors for like wanting more pay. Like, how dare you? You're only in it for the money. When it's quite obvious that people who are doctors in the UK are not in it for the money, because it's grueling and it's really, you know, underappreciated, underpaid, you know. It's serious. Like, people who do it seriously are just powered by a deep desire to help people. Do you know what I mean? So it was heartbreaking as well, but hilarious as well, and I would 100% recommend that. Like, even in these times of woe, if you're feeling like, I'm not sure I can read anything really heavy that's going to really, you know, like affect me emotionally, I would say still read this one because it was really funny, really lighthearted, you know, and ended, you know, I wouldn't say badly, ended nicely, you know. Anyway, that's that one. Take these curlers out, but God only knows what it's actually going to do. Like, did I keep them up long enough? Like, I don't know, do I have like hair that does that? God only knows. I don't have any hairspray, so just a thing. That sort of worked, didn't it? Ooh. Anyway, where was I? Oh yeah. So then there's the 2 audiobooks that I listen to, which is a way that I'm coping, basically. I'm sort of doing my work at my desk, blah, blah, listening to audiobooks in the background when it's feasible. And I'm getting through sort of loads in this way. So the first one I did, which is another one that came up in my borrow box, is The Testaments by Margaret Atwood, which loads of people have already read. I'm a bit late to the party, but I was waiting for it to come up on my library app. And there was like mixed reviews, you know, loads of people were like, yes, it deserves the, you know, all the prizes that it's got, it's really amazing. And loads of other people were just like, no, like it's overrated, it's not her best, you know, like Handmaid's Tale was 1,000 times better, blah, blah, blah. But in the end, I loved it. It was so good, it was amazing. And anyway, anyone who doesn't know, The Testaments, it's the sequel to The Handmaid's Tale. So I read The Handmaid's Tale, I think, this is the wrong one. Next one is this one. I read The Handmaid's Tale ages ago. I think I was in high school when I read it, and I loved it immediately, and have done ever since. It's, you know, it's really, really good. What about that? Ooh, that one looked better. That's annoying. Like, one side's gonna be better than the other. Like, how dumb is that? Ah, girl. Yeah, awesome. Not awesome. Fuck's sake. But anyway, The Handmaid's Tale, everyone probably knows, but just quickly, it's sort of this society in the future where America's like this, like extra, like uber religious, like dictator type state, you know, like a theocracy basically, and you have to sort of follow all of the rules that these men have decided are the rules of God, or else you get hung up and like hung and sort of like lynched and like put up on a wall for everyone to see that you've done bad. And there's something up with like the fertility rates due to a war that was fought. So loads of the women aren't able to have children, but they need obviously to have children for the population. So they take all of the people that can have kids and sort of force them to be sex slaves and like basically baby making slaves for like these generals and sort of like high up important people whose wives can't actually have kids. So then the sequel, this other one, is about these kids, sort of like one of the kids is growing up in this place, and another of the kids is growing up in Canada. So America becomes Gilead, this place, that's the theocracy place, but Canada is still just the same, and people sort of like escape to Canada from Gilead all the time, or they escape to Mexico or whatever, which they're running. But then there's sort of like a secret in the end about these 2 kids, you know, and how, you know, they have some sort of thing in common. And also you find out that one of the aunts, so the aunts are like the women who have like quite a lot of the power. They're sort of like nuns, and they are the only ones that can read, the only women that can read. All other women aren't allowed to learn to read. And they sort of run things, like they don't have husbands, they don't have kids. One of the aunts, who's like really well known and everyone like runs quite a lot of things, it turns out that she has a bit of an ulterior motive in all of these things that she's putting in place and all of the sort of cruelty that she shows to other people. It turns out that it's not exactly what it seems, and in the end it's really good. I loved it. I love the characters. Like, Margaret Atwood just is the best. I just love her so much. Like, I saw her at Hay Festival, which was cancelled this year, and I don't want to talk about it. But anyway, I saw her at Hay Festival one year, and she was hilarious. She's like the feistiest old lady now. But anyway, that was so good. The Testaments. You should read it or listen to it on audiobook. It was really good on audiobook. And another one that I listened to on audiobook was My Sister, Serial Killer by Oyinkan... oh, something... Braithwaite. Oyinkan Braithwaite. So, this book takes place in Nigeria, which I loved. Like, I don't really read, I guess it's my own fault. I don't really, read a lot of stuff coming out of Nigeria or about Nigeria. I think probably because I read really popular stuff and publishers aren't telling me to read that at the minute. But it's made me think, oh, that was really good. I'd love to read loads more stuff to do with Nigeria and sort of Africa and everything. And my friend Kara's had a thing for ages where she was reading a mystery story to do with like each different country. Like she was going to read one mystery book from each country, and I think she read quite a few from Africa and she said they were really good. So I might sort of do something like that, sort of seek out like Nigerian sort of literature and stuff. If anyone has any ideas, let me know in the comments. I think this might be a new idea I have. But this one is basically about this girl. She's a nurse at a hospital and she lives with her mother and her sister keeps murdering her boyfriends. And like the older sister is trying to keep covering it up. Like she's got this like really intense like family loyalty toward her sister and her mother. And she's the older sister and she's always been told, oh, you have to watch out for your little sister, she's your responsibility. And I guess the little sister as well, because of that, now feels no responsibility. Like the big sister's had to take on all of the feeling of responsibility for the both of them. So the sister acts, like the younger sister acts ridiculously reckless. She kills all her boyfriends. She posts it on Instagram and stuff. And the older sister just has to go around cleaning up all of her messes, like literally and figuratively. The little sister starts sort of like setting her eyes on a guy that the older sister has always had a crush on. So now the older sister's torn. She's like, oh my god, like if she starts dating that guy, she might kill him and I really like him, but also I can't tell him that she kills people because she's my little sister and I have to protect her and I can't tell anyone. And I just thought it was really good, like weirdly whimsical-ish, like a sort of like really dark humor type thing. Like obviously murder's not funny, but in this book it was really funny. And she's sort of haunted by all of the murders that she's had to help clean up, and she sort of has this guy in a coma in the hospital that she works in who she uses as like a confidant. She tells him like all of her woes and about her sister being a serial killer, and he obviously he's in a coma so he doesn't know. But anyway, I really liked this one. I like the depictions of Nigeria and things that happen in Nigeria and like sort of like, I don't know, the lifestyle they lead, like the house that they're in, like they have a bunch of like servants and stuff that's, really like interesting and weird. Anyway, I really enjoyed it. That was good. Right, so then currently reading and to be read, currently reading is this bad boy still. Like I'm working on this baby for Bert and Sean's 90s book club and it's pretty good. I'm really liking it, but it's like, I don't know why it's going so slow. I don't think I read it less often than I read other things. I don't know, other things seem to go really fast and then this one just seems to keep going. Like I'm more than halfway now. Wait. Yeah. And I'm getting into really interesting bits, but I don't know why. Yeah, it's just, yeah, I feel like I spent ages reading it and then I've only actually gotten a couple pages. Like some weird like time warp. Does anyone find that with like certain books that you read? You don't know why it's not going faster than it's going. But anyway, this one's actually quite good despite it being massively offensive. This girl, she is like in the 50s or 60s, something like that. She lives in the bayou in Louisiana with her grandmother and her grandfather. And she has like a really normal, like poor bayou life, She goes to school, she does some work to make money with her grandmother who's like a healer, She sort of like pulls boats in the swamp and stuff. Like it's a relatively normal life, if you lived in the bayou. But then everything starts sort of like going a bit wrong. So she's dating this guy and her grandmother and his parents really don't want them to be together. And she's like, what's all the problem? Is it that he's like richer than me and I'm really poor? And then you find out, no, it's because they're secretly brother and sister, because it's VC Andrews and why wouldn't they be brother and sister and also trying to make out with each other? It's just how it goes. And then like loads of other things drop as well. Like the grandmother's like, not only is he secretly your brother, you also have a secret sister and she's super rich. I want you to promise me if anything bad happens to me, like you're going to go and you're going to go find this like super rich father that you have. Anyway. Gets crazier from there. Like the grandfather's a wild man, tries to sell her into sex, because it's VC Andrews, of course that was going to happen. So I'm just waiting now. So she's like, we're in the middle of it and it's starting to get sort of normal-ish again. So it's about time for someone to try to like, you know, sexually assault somebody or like something weird to go down, something really offensive to happen. And I'm ready. I've prepped myself emotionally. Anyway, so that's going. And one sort of just that I have acquired recently, I said that I wasn't going to acquire anymore because I acquired most of my books through actual bookstores, and because those are all closed now, I'm like, woo, I'm going to save so much money and actually read the books in my house. But I didn't think, I don't really have as intense a stock up for books that I read with my kid, which is annoying. We tend to just buy them when we're ready to read a new one. So I had to acquire some on the internet, which I don't like to do, but whatever. I've acquired 3. Because she's 5 and we like to read like sort of kiddo graphic novels together at bedtime. One of them is like the next 2 in the Bad Guys series. If you've seen my shows or if you've seen my videos before, you know that she loves the bad guys. Basically, the idea is that they're like bad, vicious animals like wolves and like spiders and snakes or whatever, but they don't want to be seen like that anymore. They don't want to be bad animals anymore. They want to be good animals and they want to be heroes and save the world. So in the last one, they went into space. In order to get back from space, they had to get into this like pod machine thing. They didn't know how to work it, and they pressed a dial that they didn't really understand, and it sent them back in time. So the next one is about the dinosaurs. They've accidentally ended up in dinosaur times. It's called The Bad Guys in Do You Think He's Saurus? And then the one after that, I don't really know what's going to happen. This one's just called The Bad Guys in Superbad. And we'll find out about that one after this one, I guess, because they sort of go off each other. You can't really read them like, you know, out of order. They kind of sort of go together. Anyway, kid loves those. A lot of like fart jokes, you know, the humor about naked butts, as you do. And then also this one, which is a bit of, I don't know, a bit of an off the cuff, like a risk really. I don't know anything about it. But when I bought The Bad Guys, Amazon told me that people who buy Bad Guys also buy this book. And I was looking at it and it looks cute. And I think it's the kind of thing that both me and Anwen will like. So it's called Amulet by Keizu Kibushi. Anyone? Has anyone read this one? Surely there's like, you know, comics and graphic novel enthusiast people who know it really well and can give me some information. It looks really cute. And like fun and interesting, and I don't really know anything about it. It says book 1, The Stone Keeper. So if we really like it, I guess we can get other books? I don't know. There's something strange behind the basement door. After a family tragedy, Emily Navin and their mother moved to an ancestral home to start a new life. On the family's very first night in the mysterious house, Em and Navin's mom is kidnapped by a tentacled creature. Now it's up to Em and Navin to figure out how to set things right and save their mother's life. I'm a bit excited. Okay, so I think my hair has turned out okay. What do you think? It's like not as like curly as I thought it would do. It's like curlier on the side, which is super annoying. But this side I guess is okay. It just sort of gives it some bounce, you know, and some, I don't know, some structure. What do you reckon? Anyway, it's ready for me to go to the grocery store, which I'm super excited about. I'm gonna try to make small talk with strangers, like over our carts, you know? We'll each have like our trolleys by here, and I'm gonna, you know, try to engage them in conversation just to boost the spirits. But yeah, like I'm a bit sort of worried about it because they got these like gatekeepers now, don't they, at all the grocery stores? Like you've got to stand in the line outside like a certain distance from each other, and they can only let in a certain number of people at a time. Like every time I have a situation like that, there's like some problem. Like one time there was a guy in front of me who had mentioned to his friend that he'd had symptoms like 2 weeks ago. And for that reason, the gatekeeper wouldn't let him in. He's like, but even if I had it, I was supposed to self-isolate for 14 days and it's been like 20 days. So what's the problem? Also, you didn't ask anyone else. So how would you know that they weren't also in the same situation? Like it's ridiculous. And he was like, no, you can't come in. And like another time I had my kid with me and he was like, oh, so it's like 1 in, 1 out, you know, but in order for you to go in, 2 have to come out, but 2 generally aren't allowed in together. So like he kept sort of moving the person behind me into the thing in front of me because I needed to wait for two to come out. So it'd be like one out, one in from behind me, one out, one in from behind me. And I'd be like, so like to get it clear, in order for me to go in, two people would have to come out. And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, but two people aren't allowed in together. You split them up every time you do it. So it's never going to be that two people come out. One person will only ever come out, and then the person behind me will only ever go in, so I'll never go in. And I was just like the brain on him was working, you know, like it wanted to understand. Like I shouldn't slag him off, you know, he's probably had like a really hard day. But finally in the end he was like, oh, I see what you mean. Like, yes, ding. And he let me in. Anyway, so wish me luck in my grocery store foray. I hope you all are doing really well. I hope you're having a better lunch than what I've just scavenged off my child. And I will see you next week. Thank you for watching. Bye, bye, bye.